Hello. So I watched Karate Kid Legends not that long ago, and yet it feels like my brain is going into self-preservation mode and instantly trying to delete every memory I have of that movie. But I refuse to forget about Karate Kid Legends, and now I'm making it your problem.
Gamey cookie guy entertainment.
If you couldn't tell by that intro, I was pretty disappointed by Karate Kid Legends, and that stings because I really do try to temper expectations I have for movies that I go to see, but I couldn't help myself. I love martial arts movies. I even love like good martial arts in bad movies. Like that pretty much sums up my entire opinion on the movie that came out this year, Love Hurts, which is like one of the worst things I had seen in a theater all year. So, in spite of myself, I went into Karate Kid Legends genuinely excited, and then I proceeded to have the actual worst time I've had in a theater all year. And to be completely fair to the movie, I partially blame this like immense disappointment on the marketing because this movie was sold to me as the Spider-Man No Way Home of Karate Kid movies, bringing back Jackie Chan and Ralph Macchio for one last big tournament. And unfortunately, they both go like criminally wasted in this movie. And, you know, like good for the marketing team, like you made a good trailer, I guess, but it was really to the detriment of the final product because you know what Spider-Man No Way Home didn't do was market the movie off of the backs of their legacy characters. Now, I'm not saying Karate Kid Legends would have been a better movie if Ralph Macchio like crane kicked out of a Doctor Strange portal unannounced in some miraculous Deus Ex Machina moment, because at the end of the day, it's still going to be the same movie. But we just spend so much of this movie in what feels like limbo, waiting for these characters that we have been told play a major role in this movie. We're just waiting for them to show up. And when they finally do show up, it feels like they are given nothing to do because at this point, by the time they arrive, the story has nothing to do with them. Now, you may be wondering if you didn't see the movie and are watching this video for some reason. Well, if Daniel Russo and Mr. Han don't show up for most of the runtime, then what is this movie actually about? Well, it's about boxing, obviously. Yes, before we enter into the final act of this movie with the tournament our titular Karate Kid needs to win via training montage, the vast majority of this movie is spent focusing on new characters, a father and daughter, Victor and Mia. Victor is a former up-and-coming boxer who traded in his boxing gloves for oven mitts when he opened Victory Pizzeria to support his daughter Mia. He then gets into financial debt with the brutal and shady O'Shea. Victor must then turn back to boxing in order to get himself out from under this debt and save himself from O'Shea's loan shark gang. And if that sounds like an entirely different movie than the one the trailers promised us, that's because it probably should have been, because these two plot lines feel completely disjointed and step all over each other in the final product. One of the big taglines going into this movie, it's spoken in the trailer and in the movie by the character Daniel LaRusso, is
two branches, one tree.
And in the movie, he is referring to the legacies of the Hans and Miyagi-Do coming together. But this movie isn't about the Hans and the Miyagis. Those are not the two branches that the movie should have been focused on connecting onto one tree. And I'm not saying that isn't a good idea for a Karate Kid movie, but that's not what Karate Kid Legends is about. Because despite not liking the final product that we got, I think there is actually a ton of potential in this karate boxing hybrid movie idea. Like, those are your two branches. So for the rest of this video, let's look at what that movie could have looked like. A movie that I am going to refer to as Karate Kid Victory. For the most part, I think the early part of this movie works conceptually, except the part where Lee is already a master fighter, because we still need him to be credibly defeated by the bully in the first act. We're still going to try and hit those classic Karate Kid beats in this new product. So the backstory for my version of Lee is this. Lee is a kid who idolized his karate champion older brother. His brother showed him the basics, the foundation, but he died before he was really able to teach Lee anything else. So Lee's style is going to be far less polished and far more improvisational. And he's certainly not going to be single-handedly taking out a whole squad of loan shark goons while Victor watches in awe. Like, Victor can see some potential in Lee, some things that he wants to try and imitate, which is why he asks to train with him. But he's not doing that. That scene was silly, even though it had the cool kick. In fact, we can keep the cool kick from the trailer. Like, maybe that's the moment where Victor goes, this kid's got something. But the rest, let's tweak that. We then get to the real heart, the real, hey, you spilled some chocolate in my peanut butter of the movie that people would probably hate no matter what, because this is the differentiating part of this movie, the part where Lee trains Victor. And I wanted to build my version of the movie around this because this is the part of the movie that I felt like was really clicking, was when Lee and Victor were training for the boxing match. I love all the messy personal dynamics that come into play with this, with Victor owing money to O'Shea, who happens to be the sensei of Connor, who's bullying Lee because Lee is dating Mia, who's the daughter of Victor. Like, it's just this web of character relationships that I really love. I also loved the melding of boxing and karate, taking the best of those two styles and bringing them together and seeing how that brings out the best in Lee and Victor. So the boxing match arrives, and just like in the original, O'Shea does not fight clean, and Victor takes some serious punishment and loses, which inspires Lee to enter into the Five Boroughs Karate Tournament to try and win that money for his friend. But it's at this point in the movie that we can really do something different. We can try and do something interesting, because instead of bringing in an outsider like Daniel LaRusso, who has absolutely no connection to the story, no connection to our protagonist, we can exchange the roles. We had Lee train Victor to fight in the boxing match, but now that Victor is unable to fight, he's going to enter the next chapter of his life and become a mentor. He will train Lee for the karate tournament. And thus we continue the time-honored tradition in Karate Kid movies of having an unconventional mentor teaching the Karate Kid. And what could be more unconventional than a sensei who doesn't even know karate? And so we get into the first round or three of the Five Boroughs tournament, and with this coaching from Victor, Lee is able to just scrape by. He is fighting scrappy. Now, he does lose some points for style. He maybe loses some points for not knowing the exact rules of engagement, but his raw skill, now being honed, is able to carry him through. But after a particularly challenging round, the two of them realize that they might not be able to do this on their own. Like, they've just been scraping by. So at this point, I think it's fitting that we bring in the person who we're going to canonically say trained Lee's older brother to fight. Yes, we're bringing in Mr. Han. That's right. I'm keeping Ralph Macchio sidelined because, again, I cannot figure out a reason for him to be in this story. But I never said we weren't bringing back the GOAT, Jackie Chan. But for real, though, take a second and realize how different the impact might have been if we didn't see that coming. If Jackie Chan wasn't plastered all over everything. Suddenly he feels like the hero riding in to save the day instead of us checking our watches waiting for him to appear in this movie. Anyway, now that Mr. Han has officially entered the movie, Victor believes that his job is done. You know, he did what he could, but he just wasn't good enough to train Lee. Like, that's the story of his life, right? He just keeps coming up short. But like I keep stressing, the relationship between Victor and Lee is central to this movie, and I have no intention of throwing what we've already built up away just because we've introduced our legacy character. So now, this is when we get a scene between all three of these characters. This is where we get the two branches, one tree speech from Mr. Han, and it actually means something to us and the characters in the movie. Mr. Han explains that Lee already has everything he needs to win this tournament. And of course, Lee is confused by this, but Mr. Han takes him through some typical karate drills, but uses some of the boxing terminology and movement that he has been working on with Victor this entire movie. We get to see the true synthesis of both of these fighting styles. And after a montage of working on these skills with Mr. Han, with Victor, Lee is finally ready to take on the rest of the tournament. And nobody has seen anything like him before. And the rest of the story is pretty much written for us. It's Connor and Lee in the final as he draws on everything that Mr. Han and Victor have taught him in order to overcome his enemy. Though I would like the final winning blow to be something that Lee watched his brother do as a kid. Something that not even Victor or Mr. Han has taught him. Something that represents Lee coming to terms with what happened to his brother and deciding to carry on that legacy. And that is my version of Karate Kid Legends. But please let me know what you think in the comments. Did you like the original movie? Do you like the version I made, Karate Kid Victory? If you were going to include Daniel LaRusso in this movie, like, what would you have done? Genuinely, I want to know, how would you have got him into this movie in a way that felt natural? Because truly, I couldn't really think of a way to do it. Like, I guess you could make him Lee's brother's sensei. That's the only... If you think of anything else, please leave them in the comments. If you like this video, please do leave a like and subscribe for more. I'll see you in the next one. Yeah. Really? That's what... Yeah.